This video has been a long time coming because the stone that I am going to show you guys in this video has been on my banker for about 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. That is a long time. I haven't been carving it all that time. It's just taken me so long because I've had some time off. I'm doing a degree. I've had more time off and we've had lots of side quests and side projects and we've been like running all over the place. So it's been one of those stones that has just been sat on my banker, and when I've had time, I've been able to work on it, and it is finally finished. So this is the chimney stone. So some of you will remember about a month ago, I posted a video about the setting out of a new chimney on top of the priory roof. I think you can link videos in other videos. Future editing me will figure out how to do that and we'll put a link somewhere. But some of you will remember that the chimney on the priory fell down and we had to carve a new chimney cap. It's sort of crenellated, it's huge, and we had to carve a new one to replace the broken one that fell through the roof. So I set my phone up on time lapse while I've been carving this stone, and I've filmed the entire process. There is some real-time carving and some time-lapse carving, and I've done some voiceover to talk about the processes that I'm going through to carve it. There are a few little things that I'm talking about in this video, like PPE, dust, halves, hand-down vibration. Loads of people ask me about things like that. So we talk a little bit about the measures that we have in place to protect us from things like that and our halves monitoring system. Also found some really interesting geology in this stone. So there's a lot of chat about sparkly holes. So that's something to look forward to. But yeah, essentially, enjoy this video of me carving a stone from start to finish. If you would like to see why I'm carving this stone, go back and watch my video in which I talk about the chimney that fell down and the setting out process and the template making process. Hopefully, I will be able to fix this stone. It's not always guaranteed that you get to fix the stone that you carved, but hopefully I will be able to fix this stone, in which case I will film the fixing process and then we'll have the whole process from start to finish, which will be very satisfying. Right. Let's crack on with the video. Okay, you join us from my banker. We're quite lucky here at Lincoln that we've got these hydraulic bankers that we can just press a button to make them go up and down, which is very good for our backs. So we're starting with this huge chunk of Lincoln limestone. So this is a limestone, it's Lincoln stone, and this particular piece has a really good little inclusion in the back, which we do find out runs all the way through the stone. So keep watching if you want to see that unfolding. I think this is called a geode. Anyway, it's a hole and it's got sparkly bits in it, so it's a sparkly hole. So there was some discussion about the best way to apply this template, because obviously there is that little geode in the back. So I applied the template in a way that I assumed would work that geode out of the stone. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. So I spent quite a bit of time applying the templates. Once I've applied the template to the top, I then have to flip the stone over so I can apply the template to the bottom bed. Now, we're also very lucky in our workshop that we don't just have these hydraulic bankers. We also have I-beams that run through the ceiling above all of our bankers. So if we need to move a heavy stone like this, or like I'm doing here, if I need to flip it over, I can do that on my own. I don't need to pester a load of the guys to help me out. We don't have to like muscle around trying to roll a 200 kilogram stone over, because we've got the I-beams, we've got a block and tackle or a chain hoist or whatever you like to call it. And with some clever slinging, I am able to lift and roll this stone over all on my own. So in a nutshell, if you wrap your sling around your stone and choke it, but make it so that the choke is kind of offset to one side, as you can see here, as you lift it, it tips the stone over. So we just repeat this process a couple of times until the stone has been completely flipped over. Obviously remembering to put some wooden skids underneath so we can get the sling in and out easily. And in case any of you are wondering why I'm wearing ear defenders in a pretty quiet workshop with no machinery running, that's because these are Bluetooth ear defenders and I am addicted to Audible, so not an ad. They don't sponsor me. I wish they would. But I get through a lot of audiobooks. If you have to stare at a stone 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, then you're going to get really into podcasts and audiobooks. I think I'm smashing out between 70 and 80 audiobooks a year currently. So as I've said in previous videos, any book recommendations, I'm always open for new book recommendations. I mostly listen to boring history stuff or fantasy stuff. I am currently rattling through everything that Terry Pratchett has ever written for the second time and anything that Brandon Sanderson has ever written for the first time. So after all of that, I have just finished applying the template. So I can finally start working the stone. And I think first I'm going to work this big scoop out of it, the big half pipe, because that is the most amount of waste. And while it's flat on its back, it is easy to get all of that waste out. So in stonemasonry world, a big scoop like this is called a cavetto. A hump is an overlow. A hollow is a cavetto, and when I was doing my stonemasonry apprenticeship many years ago, I was told the correct order to work a stone is flats, fillets, hollows and humps. So that is the order, and now you all know, now you can all work a stone. Now, the eagle-eyed among you will notice that I am using an air gun, and this, I think, is the first time you will have seen me using an air gun on this channel. I haven't used one for a while. I usually only use an air gun, sometimes called an air hammer or a hammer chisel or whatever you want to call it. It's a pneumatic, air-powered chisel gun thing. That's the only way I know how to explain it. And I only really use these for roughing out large stones. Some of the guys in the workshop will use bigger and smaller air guns and can work really fine details and like get really finished fine finishes on a stone with an air gun. I only use it for big, heavy roughing out. I don't finish my stone with the air gun, mostly because I don't have a full set of air gun chisels. I only have roughing out chisels, claws and punches and that kind of thing, and this 1/4 inch. I just can't afford to buy lots of finishing chisels, and I have no idea what Craig showed me on his phone there, so don't ask. So, as I've mentioned in the past, we don't use electric tools in this workshop. We don't use grinders. If we were going to use grinders or any kind of abrasive kind of wheel, that kind of thing, that kind of tool, we would need a completely different health and safety PPE kind of setup. We would need water walls and all kinds of stuff, because it's the grinders and abrasive wheels that really do generate the most amount of dust and, more importantly, the invisible dust, which is the stuff you really don't want to breathe in. So in roughing out this cavetto, I've created a lot of mess. I have to sweep all this up. So all of this rubble gets chucked into a big sieve, and we actually sieve all of the chippings off the workshop floor, and the dust is kept. We have big wheelie bins, literal dust bins full of stone dust, and we use that dust in order to make our pointing mixes, to put in our pointing mixes and mortar repairs and that kind of thing. The stone chippings will go in the skip. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now so we can enjoy some gentle stonemasonry ASMR tippy tapping just for a bit. More from me in a moment. Right, that's quite enough of that. Let's get back to talking about PPE. So a lot of you asked me about how we deal with HAVS, hand-arm vibration syndrome, which is something that gives you white finger or numb, tingly fingers when working with vibrating tools. I don't know why I decided to show you guys my hands in this little video, but we have these watches, as you've just seen. These are our HAVS watches, and the HAVS watches track the hand-arm vibration as we are using vibrating tools, and they will set off an alarm if we've been using the vibrating tool for too long. They will tell us I think they tell us if we're gripping the tool too tight as well. I believe that's something that they do. But they basically track our use of vibrating tools, and if we have used a tool for too long that day, they tell us to stop, and they also send an alert to our manager to say that someone has been using a vibrating tool for too long. So we stop and go back to using hand tools, and that is how we monitor the use of vibrating tools and protect ourselves against HAVS, hand-arm vibration syndrome. All right, so back on the air gun, carrying on roughing out this stone. I'm kind of alternating between a little bit of air gun and a little bit by hand. You can see I'm still wearing my HAVS watch, so that is tracking my HAVS points. You're allowed to rack up 400 points a day before you have to stop using the air gun. And if I use this F&K air gun pretty consistently, I can pretty much use it for about 6 or 7 hours. That's almost a full day. So they're not actually as bad as you think. The worst thing are the small grinders. I think you can use a small grinder for about an hour before you've used all of your points to the day, which is crazy. So you can see I've worked 2 drafts either side of this Cavetto, and I'm just working between these drafts, going from side to side to make sure it's perfectly flat all the way up. And like I said at the beginning, this stone is pretty heavy, and sometimes you can't really use slings to maneuver stones around. You do just need to ask for help, and that's fine, because you know what, guys? You don't actually get any extra points for hurting yourself. If you need help lifting something, ask for help. That's totally cool. And I ended up working these 2 top sections, these 2 flats off next before finishing the Cavetto, just because it would give me a better angle to get into the bottom of that Cavetto. So if I lowered these sections early, then I'd be able to get in better with my chisel. And the closer you get into the centre of a big Cavetto like this, the harder it gets. And you never quite have the right bull nose to fit every curve. So luckily, Craig had this extra long cathedral length flat chisel that I was able to get a really good angle on, and that really helped get down into the bottom of this Cavetto. And then we flipped it over so that I could attack it from the other side. So the mallet I'm using here is a rubber mallet. This is from a company called Konig with a K. They're a German company, and they make the best mallets. This is a 1200. I'd really like a 950, but unfortunately they don't ship to the UK anymore. So if anyone's in Germany and wants to send me a 950 Konig mallet, I'd be ever so grateful. So just like on the other side, I've worked a draft all the way along the outside of this Cavetto, and I'm just working side to side between those two drafts, constantly checking with my straight edge to make sure it's perfectly flat between those two drafts, which will give us our perfect Cavetto. We work to millimetre tolerances here, so it has to be perfectly flat side to side, even though it is a perfect scoop. Also, I'm very pleased with this camera angle, you know. I almost, for a second, feel like a professional YouTuber. Isn't it lovely? And then I was finally down to the last little bit of my half pipe, that last little landing strip in the middle. How satisfying.
And it can't even get stuck. Skateboard.
Whee!
Do an ollie. Do it.
Going in. What? Who's done this before?
Leave it there.
Whoa.
Oh.
Okay, that's quite enough of that. The next thing to do was to work these two big chamfers off the back or the outside of the chimney cap, because it is, after all, half an octagon. And this is where it got pretty exciting, because I found some really cool geology. So let's get into that. Okay, so I pitched a big chunk off this particular chamfer, and there were a few sparkles. I think this is called a geode. Some geology experts will probably correct me. Even though I hit rocks for a living, I don't actually know that much about geology. But the bit that I pitched off looked like this little sparkly geode thing, tiny little sparkle cave. I have kept it because I just thought it'd be a cool addition to my rock shelf. Anyway, it got bigger. Sometimes when you're working stones like this, if you see something like a geode or an inclusion or a shake, sometimes you can just keep working it and it'll just work out because it's only kind of surface level. But unfortunately, that was not the case here. Yes, I know, sometimes the only way to work it is to get on it. I don't make the rules, that's just how it is. So more air gun, more appearance of the halves watch, and also you'll notice there is an extractor directly above where I'm working there, sucking up all that lovely dust. A few people have asked me where I get my overalls from. These are from Suk Workwear, S-U-K Workwear. I think they're either an Australian or a New Zealand brand, so you do have to pay to get them shipped over, but that's only because nowhere in this country makes overalls that fit actual women's bodies. If you know of any, please let me know, because I'm always on the lookout for overalls. These ones are fantastic. This isn't sponsored, they don't sponsor me. I bought these with my own money and I just think they're fantastic. Anyway, I think it's time we talked a little bit more about our geode. It got bigger, so the more of this stone that I worked off, the more it became apparent that there was a tiny little crystal cave in there, so it in fact didn't work itself out. So yeah, it continued to get bigger, and my only hope was that in the next pass in which I work a checkout, it would maybe get smaller again. Sorry about the dramatic orientation change, but I did forget that I was filming for YouTube. But look at it, it is quite pretty. It is such a shame though that it is right on the face of my stone, but we'll see. It may vanish when I work the check out of the side, or it may not. Some people in the past have asked me what brand or what company makes our hydraulic bankers as well, and I don't know. I honestly don't know. You may have to just pause this video and try and read the side. But these are, believe it or not, these are 25 years old now, because they bought these when they replaced the Dean's Eye window back in the very early 2000s. So they're actually pretty old now, but they're still amazing. Well, this isn't ideal, is it? Oh dear. So I believe this is a geode. Someone will almost definitely correct me and tell me exactly what this is, but I'm not a geologist. So it's a little hole full of crystals. It's a crystal cave. Okay, so I did put some videos of my crystal on Instagram, and quite a lot of people have asked me, is the stone rubbish now? Is it going in the skip? No, we can work around it. Like, this kind of stuff happens all the time. We can work around it. We don't want to put loads of hours of work into a stone only to throw it in the skip. We really, really don't. So this is the bottom of the stone. So there is going to be a check about that deep cut out up to about here. So there's going to be a check cut kind of out of here. So I'm hoping that this will get worked down. It doesn't go any deeper than that. However, as I've been working off this side, this is what my crystal looked like before I worked it off, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. So that is on the same plane as the other one on the other side. So I'm hoping what I don't have is a big crystally tunnel running all the way through there, because that probably would go in the skip. That would be really unfortunate. A few people on Instagram also asked me what I would do if this was the finished face and if I was going to keep this. If this is on the face, structurally the stone is still fine. We could do the old stone glue and stone dust trick, where you essentially just mix stone glue with stone dust and then cram it in, sand it off, polish it up, and it just looks like another bit of the crystal. Done that before. That usually works. But yeah, we will have to see how this develops. How exciting. So then I got the stone all marked up, ready to tackle these crenellations. This is quite unusual for us because it's not Gothic, it's just very crenellated, so it's not something that I would normally ever get to work. It's not something that normally goes on the cathedral. There's also a sort of chamfer detail on the crenellation, which is what that little template is for. So a lot of using squares in order to square all these lines round, trammeling all the lines round, making sure they're perfectly symmetrical and neat and where they should be. And then I could finally start attacking that big check and hopefully seeing where that geode goes. Another question that I get asked fairly regularly is how often I have to sharpen my chisels, and I'm afraid there isn't a very good answer to that other than I sharpen them when they need it. Obviously there are chisels that I use lots, like my 1" and my 1/4" and my claws, and there are chisels that I don't use very often, like particular bull noses or mitre chisels, that kind of thing. So it's just when they need it. If I'm using that chisel lots, I'll end up sharpening it lots, and you can really tell when they're blunt and they need sharpening. We do it ourselves. We have a grinding wheel and also a whetstone. So yeah, we can either do a more aggressive sharpen on the wheel or just a little bit of light fettling on the old whetstone. So here I'm using a pitcher, and the pitcher is basically the first tool we use when roughing out large chunks of stone. This removes the most amount of waste, and I'm really intrigued to see where this geode goes at this point. And how about that? It got bigger. Brilliant. Okay, look guys, there are going to be big chunks of silence in this video because I time-lapsed it, so there is no sound. And also, it turns out, I cannot talk about the same stone for 39 minutes. Imagine. Okay, it is nearly the end of the day, and this was the geode, so it was obviously like flush with here, my little hole. and I worked it down and I thought it had gone away, and then I just got down to the finished surface and it's back. I think that is the back of another clump of crystals in there, but that's the finished surface, so I don't know what to do. I might flush some stuff. I might go and see conservation, get one of them doodads, syringe, flush some stuff through it, and maybe put some grout in it or some like resin. I don't really know, but that's a whole different conversation to be had when I finish the stone. I've got to cut the crenellations out. I've got a check to work off there. I've got loads of chamfers to do. This is actually going to take a little bit more involved than I thought it was going to be. It's going to take a little while, but it's exciting though. It's very different. It's not Gothic, so it's very different to what we normally do. So a question that somebody asked me on a video recently was, is our work consistently busy? Are we always busy? Or do we have quiet periods like in the winter where we don't have much to do? So because we are working full time on the cathedral, but also the cathedral estate, so all of the properties surrounding the cathedral that is owned by the cathedral estate, we are busy constantly. We have about 10 things on the go at any one point. So even though we try and plan our works seasonally so that we are inside over the winter, over Christmas, carving and working all these stones, and then by about June we should be outside fixing all those stones on the building and then setting out for the next phase, and then back in the workshop for the following Christmas so that we can be inside during the colder months. That is the ideal process. So outside in the summer, inside in the winter would be ideal, but sometimes it doesn't always work like that. So sometimes a job like this where it's quite reactive, a chimney has fallen down, so we have to stop the main job that we're working on, jump on this little side quest. This will take a few months, we'll get this done, then it's back on the main job. But unfortunately that means that that main job that we've programmed in to work seasonally is now a little bit behind. So we're kind of pushing further and further behind, and it is starting to look like we are going to be outside later and later in the year. But we will see. We can claw it back, guys. The main goal is to not be outside on site in January, because that is not fun. Right, now the eagle-eyed among you will notice that I am using a teeny tiny wood saw on this stone. This is a fairly soft limestone. It's a Lincoln stone from Dunstan, which is not as soft as the French limestone that I quite often use a wood saw on, but it is slightly softer than our older Lincoln stone quarried at Rhizome Road. So this is kind of in the middle somewhere, not as soft as the French stuff, but not as hard as the older Lincoln stuff. So I can cut some things out with a wood saw, which was really helpful for these crenellations. It sped it up so much and just made them so much neater, and it just made the whole process a lot easier. So luckily we can use wood saws. So this is the bit of the whole process of carving the stone that I was looking forward to the least, because I knew this was coming and I knew this was going to be a little bit of a faffy bit. So these little cutouts, these little kind of checks in between each of the crenellations, which happens to overlap that sort of arris where the two faces of the octagon meet. So it does have to include that line, it has to run all the way through. These were always going to be a bit of a faff, and they weren't as faffy as I thought they were going to be, but still they were just not the most fun thing to work, because you had to just get right in there and it all had to be perfect, and you had to keep that arris perfectly straight all the way up. So that was fun. I was really glad when these were finished though. Some people quite often ask me about our actual workshop. So this workshop that I'm working in, the Mason's shop, was originally purchased and built by the Dean and Chapter of Lincoln Cathedral back in 1889 as a permanent site for the workers and labourers of the cathedral. So there has been a works department in Lincoln Cathedral for hundreds of years. Even before these workshops were built, there is still evidence of a works department on site at the chapter house. So back in the late 1700s, there was a team of masons, carpenters, lead workers working on the cathedral. But this particular building that we are in at the moment, and this site that the entire works team is occupying, has been here since 1889. And some of these casts that are on the wall are probably almost that old. I've got some photos of the workshop from the 1930s, and it has the same casts on the wall, the same windows, the same doors, the same everything. The only difference is we've got these hydraulic bankers now. But personally, I think that the plumber's workshop, the lead worker's workshop here at Lincoln Cathedral, has got some of the most exciting things in it because it's got a lot of the original lead casting kit and the lead casting bench from the 1930s. I don't know if a history of the works yard is something that people would be interested in, but it is something that I'm actually writing my master's dissertation on at the moment, a history of Lincoln Cathedral works yard. So maybe in the future I might make a special episode all about the history of the workshops and all the different crafts and trades that we have here at Lincoln Cathedral. So at this point I am pretty much on the home straight. I'm just working these chamfers off this Krenellation detail, so this kind of stepped out section of the crenellations at the top of the chimney has got chamfers all the way around, so I'm just working my way through those, and it's really satisfying seeing all these lines come together. Okay, and the final question I'm going to answer, and this is the question that we as stonemasons get asked the most out of any other question, and that is, what happens if you've put all this time and effort into working this stone and you get all the way to the end and you accidentally chip a bit off or the stone cracks in half? So the answer to that is, at this point, I would be pretty certain that the stone isn't going to just crack in half, because if a stone does just want to split in half, it's probably because it's got a fault in it, it's got a vent or a shake through the stone, which you can usually tell pretty soon. I mean, the sawyer should be able to tell at the stone cutting stage, so it should never really make it into the workshop. Anyway, you can kind of hear whether a stone has got any faults in it. When you tap your chisel on it, it makes a sort of hollow sound. But if you do start working a stone, then it becomes pretty apparent that there's a fault in it, so you can just stop before you get all the way to the end. If you do get all the way to the end and you just chip like a little corner off, you can glue it back on. That is fine. So long as it's not structural, if it's a little corner, no one's going to notice. Just use stone glue. You can just glue it back on, guys. We've all done it. We've all been there. But if after all of that, you do get all the way to the end of your stone and a massive chunk falls off, if it gets maybe like knocked or bashed in a way that makes it structurally unsound, then yes, it will go in the skip and you will have to start again, and you will usually have to go for a long walk to calm down. And then you'll go in grovelling to your boss and ask for another stone. It happens. It has happened. So you just kind of have to get used to that, really. It's a natural product. Mistakes happen. Sometimes there's fossils in there and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, so I actually am on the home straight here. I'm working the final, very top of this chamfer so that this detailing that goes around the top of the crenellations is nice and pointy. And I'm being very, very cautious of that edge as I'm working round, because with something like this that has got lots of perfect straight lines, the tiniest little wobble or the tiniest little ding and it's really obvious. And this stone won't get polished or smoothed out like some people often ask. You can kind of see in this bit of footage the diagonal lines across the face of the stone, so it is just off the chisel. So we just leave those diagonal chisel marks. That's a tooled finish, we call that. So it's left tooled off the chisel, so it's not smooth or polished. This is how it's supposed to look. And just like that, finished. Ta-da! Finally. Oh, I'm so pleased with this one, you guys. It's so neat and crisp and sharp, and I loved it. So this is obviously only half of the octagonal chimney. Our Craig worked the other half, so we decided to go and get the palette in so that we could match both halves together and see what it looked like as a complete unit. Look at that, lovely. Lovely circle, that. Go on, Cameron, stand in the circle. Get in the circle, Cameron, get in the circle. I'll get in the circle. Yay! I'd be delighted if this was on top of my house, yeah. So that was our crenellated chimney capstone, half of it. You might notice that it's only half a circle. Craig worked the other half. and hopefully me and Craig will be able to fix our stones on top of the priory roof. I hope that answered a few questions about things like hand-arm vibration, and a little bit about the working process of stone. I do get quite a lot of questions. I am thinking about doing another Q&A video because I'm still getting like a lot of questions from you guys, which I love. I love it when people ask like really kind of interesting, insightful questions that it would never occur to me if it wasn't for you guys asking them. So if you do have any questions, no questions are too silly, leave them in the comments. I do make a note of them, and eventually I'll make another Q&A video where I go through all your questions and answer them. Just a quick reminder that in June on the 22nd to the 24th, 23rd to the 25th, 20-something of June, I'll put the details, it is Installer Show at the NEC in Birmingham. So that is the biggest construction industry trade show in the country. And I will be there on the Wednesday. Well, I'll be there on Tuesday on some panels, doing lots of talking with some lovely people about heritage crafts and social media and all that nonsense. Then on the Wednesday, I am going to be in the heritage zone with stone dresser, plasterers, all kinds of peeps. And I'm going to be carving a crocket. So if you would like to come along and heckle me while I'm carving a crocket, then come to Installer Show at the NEC. And if you would like free tickets for Installer, there is a link that I will put in the description, my own link, that if you click on, then you can register for free tickets for Installer Show. And if you can't come to Installer Show at the NEC in June, then I'm going to be at Super Trowel, the National Bricklaying Championship Finals in August. I will also put a link for that below. As always, apparently YouTube really likes it if I ask you guys to like and subscribe. Yeah, YouTube will be favourable towards me for saying that, apparently. So if you would like to like this video and subscribe and maybe watch some of my other videos, some of them are okay. So I would be very grateful if you would do that. Anyway, it is 7:30 on a Monday morning and it's raining, so let's go to work.